All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the training. Thank you all for joining us. And whatever time it is for you, we're glad you joined us for the next 45 minutes. I want to take a couple minutes to introduce our speaker, Dr. Grant. We are very lucky to hear from him today, and there's a lot that you can take away from this training. So, Dr. Grant received his doctorate in microbiology, food and nutrition sciences from the University of Queensland, Australia. His extensive doctoral research focused on the power of the microbiome and how it is linked to our overall health and well-being, as well as the close relationship between health results we're all seeking and unique functional foods and phytonutrients. He's been inspired by and has had the pleasure to work with some of the leading scientists in his field, and since receiving his doctoral degree, has spent time innovating and developing the world of supplemental products. He is published in the scientific fields of prebiotics, dietary fiber, probiotics, the microbiome, and most recently, he's presented his publication on a global stage on how fiber and polyphenols increase efficacy in improving nutritional health, and has done so in leading scientific world conferences. Dr. Grant has spent years honing his craft and building his expertise, which is why Unicity regards him as so valuable. The short story is, we are very lucky to be getting 45 minutes with such an expert in the field we all care so much about. Each slide and bit of information he'll share today with us will be worth its weight in gold if we use it correctly. So, Dr. Grant, that's a mouthful, but I'll let you take it from here. It's all yours, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Mike. That was a great introduction for me. You can hear me now?
Oh yeah, it says you're not on mute, but we can't hear you.
Are you?
Nope, just me. Just I can't hear you.
Okay, so everyone else can hear me.
Everybody else, keep going.
Yeah.
All right, take it away, Dr. Grant.
Yeah, it's great to be here on this, joining me with this Thursday morning. I'll just share my screen for everyone today. So I'm going to talk to you today about protecting your eyesight and why it's so important, especially now more than ever with this increasing number of metabolic disorders that are happening. Eye health is actually very interrelated with this, and we all can suffer with this as a linked co-disorder. So I'm really going to talk to you about this today, as Mike mentioned. It's a pretty exciting topic, and I really want to convey that enthusiasm I have about really preventing possible eye health problems in your future. So one of the most important parts of human physiology, as we hear a lot about here at Unicity, is metabolic health. And this actually allows the body to perform at its peak performance. But one of the most important parts of our bodies that we ourselves actually cherish so much is our eyes and our vision. And this is really important because actually in research, scientific research surveys have shown that 88% of people believe that good vision is actually vital for our overall health. And it's so good, in fact, it's very prized by most of us. And actually 47% of people in this research actually rated the hypothetical scenario of losing your vision as actually the worst possible health outcome. In fact, respondents were actually so worried that they equally or worse ranked losing their vision to that of losing their hearing, losing their memory, losing the ability to speak, and even ranked it worse than losing an arm or a leg. So this is why it's such an important area to prevent potential eye damage throughout our life. And this was one of the biggest concerns of people about the possible consequences of vision loss, is actually the loss of their quality of life. So they're very worried about this loss of quality of life, and it was ranked as the top concern followed by the possibility of a loss of independence. So from this research, I really want to convey that we all need to, we really have to highly value our eye health. It's an important value to all of us. But considering that research, there's actually a global epidemic of vision impairment with over 2 billion people actually living with a type of vision problem. And unfortunately, it's actually estimated that almost half of these cases are preventable. And of course, some of these cases are actually related to inadequate access to medical treatment, but also poor lifestyle factors have actually been highlighted and flagged as one of the serious issues that can detrimentally affect our vision. And this was conducted by the World Health Organization's first report on the World Report on Vision, and this was conducted last year. So inadequate and poor quality nutrition can actually detrimentally affect our vision over time, just like it can detrimentally alter the metabolism in our body and affect our metabolic health. And we talk a lot about this being a current perfect storm of poor metabolic health, where it's actually now one of the biggest risks to health globally. And this problem is becoming such an issue that it's estimated to continue to rise. And actually vision issues are actually estimated to triple globally by 2050. It's a major health risk and it is on the rise. And when you think about this previous research that I presented, and that almost half of these cases are actually preventable, it really should be an important focus for us all. So what is causing this poor eye health, and especially that rise in potentially preventable eye degeneration? So of course, aging is actually a big factor in vision decline. Vision impairment in older age can hinder our everyday tasks and put us at an increased risk of employment loss. There's the risk of falls and the loss of mobility, but this isolation that the potential loss of or vision impairment can bring actually makes us, it's potentially troublesome, that potential isolation. And it's been noted that the rise in vision impairment is associated with an aging population globally, especially in developed nations. So we're actually becoming, the younger generation is much smaller than in previous generations, and the older generation is becoming the much larger demographic of society. But there is evidence that actually the current increase in prevalence of vision impairments, it cannot be fully explained by this increased life expectancy alone. So a lot of other causes of poor eye health that can actually lead to impairment of vision include this constant increased and prolonged screen time that we're all probably guilty of, especially in these times of corona and isolation and lockdown. When we're in our homes, we're watching a lot more television, we're on our phones more, we're looking at this artificial light. But there's also nutritional deficiencies. These are a big issue, such as lack of vitamin A. Also, there's UV light and irritation from contact lenses, cornea abrasions, and chronic use of certain medications can actually alter the eye health. And there's also pollution and poor lifestyle factors like smoking that has a big association and contributor to poor eye health. But from a nutritional point of view, we're also eating a lot more highly processed sugar-dense foods. And it's actually been shown that poor metabolic health and factors of metabolic syndrome, such as obesity, actually increase the risk of vision impairment. So I just wanted to talk a bit about why this increased screen time is actually a really big issue currently. So when looking at increased screen time, there's actually a couple of major factors that lead to poorer eye health. So firstly, there's actually this proximity issue. So the problem is with staying short distance to these viewing objects, that the lens of your eye actually very rarely relaxes. And most of the time you're indoors, the lens inside your eyes is actually in a complete flex state, and it's like being constantly strained. And recent scientific evidence actually shows an association between time spent outdoors and the delayed onset of later stage short-sightedness. And the other big issue with this increased screen time that we're all experiencing now more than ever in these modern times is that we're having this increased exposure to blue light. So blue light is actually this wavelength of light, and it's actually beneficial for us during daylight hours where it can boost attention, reaction times, and mood. But it's very disruptive at night. And although blue light is actually environmentally friendly for us, blue light can actually affect your sleep and potentially cause diseases. And it's the proliferation of electronics with screens, as well as this energy efficient lighting, that's increasing our exposure to blue light wavelengths, especially after sundown. So LED lights actually produce more blue light than past energy, those inefficient light sources that we used to have in the past. We've all changed them out for the very energy efficient LED lighting. But so before artificial lighting, the sun was the major source of lighting, and most people spent their evenings in relative darkness. But the problem is, apart from like this disruption in our sleep patterns, blue light can actually penetrate deeper into the eye. And visible blue light actually passes through the cornea and lens and reaches the retina. And because blue light can penetrate so deeply all the way to the retina, which is this inner lining of the back of the eye, too much exposure of this blue light can actually damage the light sensitive cells in the retina. So just to like make it easier to understand this concept, looking at the anatomy of the eye, allowing this blue light to penetrate excessively to the back of the eye can actually cause changes that resemble this of macular degeneration, so which can actually lead to vision impairment. So macular degeneration is actually one of the biggest factors for vision impairment in developed nations. So this same principle of too much light actually reaching the back of the eye is why ultraviolet light can also be damaging long term. So it's a very good idea when protecting your eyesight to actually wear UV protective sunglasses when outside. So we often choose a pair of sunglasses that haven't been reported to be UV protective. So it's really important to make sure that there is that protection of UV light. But we do actually have structures within our adult eyes, such as the cornea and the lens, that are very effective at blocking some of this UV light from reaching the light sensitive retina at the back of the eyeball. But sunglasses that block UV light and UV rays are important as they protect the retina and other parts of the eye from damage that could lead to other disorders such as cataracts. So when you're talking about ultraviolet light, there's actually different types of ultraviolet light, and they can actually penetrate to different areas within the eye. So it's very important to protect your eyes from that UV exposure. So we probably hear a lot about UVC, UVA, UVB, and these all actually interact with different parts of the eye and cause some damage to the light sensitive cells that are within there. So there's actually, so while the causes of age-related eye disease are complex and multifactorial, there's actually this oxidative stress that has been implicated as a common causative mechanism. So the eye is actually particularly susceptible to this oxidative stress or these free radicals as a result of high oxygen consumption and cumulative exposure to high energy visible light. And this combination of factors actually leads to the generation of these free radicals, these reactive oxygen species, if you like, that can actually trigger this oxidative damage in the eye tissues. And a consequence of this there's actually been significant research interest in the role of dietary antioxidants and the potential therapeutic benefits of antioxidant vitamins and mineral supplements as a simple measure to prevent some of these disease onsets and control the risk of developing these eye disorders later in life. So diet and nutrition is actually a key lifestyle factor that can have a long-term effect on eye health and vision. In fact, a common eye condition related to diet and high blood sugar, which is a symptom of metabolic syndrome or in diabetes, is actually retinopathy, often a comorbidity of metabolic syndrome. And studies actually suggest that the adherence to a diet high in vegetables, fruits, and fish that are higher in omegas, the intake of these is actually, they have nutritional compounds that actually may protect against the development of retinopathy. And this is also a good way to potentially prevent degenerative eye diseases from manifesting in our lives. So long term, a lot of other eye degenerative diseases are actually related to our dietary and nutritional intakes. But what else can be done to really maintain adequate eye health in these modern times? So there's a lot of research behind nutraceuticals and potentially maintaining that proper eye health. The research here is very strong in this area. And this is why Unicity is so passionate about developing innovative products that can help maintain proper metabolic function. And vision, as I mentioned, is also a very important aspect when it comes to our health goals. As research shows that vision is so important, it's an important concern to us all. And it's really interrelated with some of the metabolic syndrome issues and eye health in general. And Vision Essentials is actually committed to this and has been formulated to provide these ingredients that may reduce the effects of these environmental factors that can strain and detrimentally affect our eye health. So Vision Essentials actually provides natural nutrients that help strengthen and maintain eye health, especially important as we age. So we know that a lot of our nutrient sources as we age, the absorption from our gut is much lower as we age in the aging process. And this product actually has a combination of vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and phytonutrients. So these powerful plant nutrients that actually help support and reduce that risk of eye health issues later in life. So Vision Essentials is actually a scientifically backed blend of potent antioxidants and carotenoids, which actually help to maintain healthy vision and eye health. So this blend actually has this unique combination of two major carotenoids, lutein and zeaxanthin. And carotenoids, if you're not sure, are actually these powerful phytochemicals. And in recent decades, there has been this increasing interest in their effects on health. So it's been shown that a high dietary intake of carotenoids is associated with these beneficial effects in eye disorders, especially with protecting that retina from that artificial light damage that we're exposed to so much today. And it's actually combined with Unicity's polyphenol-rich bilberry and also vitamin A and zinc. And so this formulation with Vision Essentials has this potential to help ease visual fatigue and reduce the effects of artificial light affecting our eyes. So lutein and zeaxanthin is actually these carotenoids, and these are these powerful natural antioxidants for eye health and can protect from blue light. So they actually accumulate in the human macula in the eye and around the retina, and they actually help. So they have this beneficial effect of absorbing and scattering a lot of blue light before it reaches the retina, and therefore this actually protects the eyes very well. And this can reduce the risk of age-related macular degeneration. So this is your eyes degrading from these environmental stresses. And it's been shown in the last 30 years, this is actually becoming one of the leading causes of eye difficulties and vision impairment and loss, especially in developed nations. So the eye actually has this a particularly high metabolic rate. And so it really needs this increased and added need for an accumulative antioxidant protection. So that's why vitamins A, C, and E, which are strong natural antioxidants that reduce the potential damage from these free radicals or reactive oxygen species that are accumulated from our diet, from our environment, from the light penetrating our eyes. And this actually helps to lower the risk of vision impairment due to this aging process and this constant environmental stimulation. And there's actually a strong research from the Age-Related Diseases study. This was actually sponsored by the American National Eye Institute. And they actually found that a supplementation with these vitamins A, C, and E actually can reduce the risk of developing this advanced age-related degeneration of eyes by about 25%, which is a significant contribution from these important antioxidant vitamins. This formulation also has bilberry, which is a fruit source that has a high polyphenolic content. So polyphenols are these powerful fruit phytonutrients that actually contribute a lot to the colorful and bright properties that you see in a lot of fruits and flowers. But they actually have a lot of photo properties and UV protective properties that actually contribute to the color that you see. And in bilberry, there's most notably this polyphenolic content called anthocyanins, and strong research actually shows that they are particularly helpful for reducing issues of excessive screen exposure. So there's a lot of research in this area on these particular polyphenols. So more than ever now, we have this daily work where we're performing it on video displays, and we're being bombarded with this artificial light continuously. And this has actually resulted in an increase of various symptoms associated with eye fatigue. So the symptoms of eye fatigue actually include eye pain, dry eyes, excessive tearing or blurred vision of the eyes. And it's these symptoms that actually they may lead to impairing visual health and the quality of vision throughout our life if we continually exposed to this artificial light that we every day see. Because currently we could probably spend more than 8 to 12 hours a day looking at a source of artificial light in these modern times. And studies actually suggest that these anthocyanins have the ability to prevent these visual disturbances and these symptoms of eye fatigue that we see so much from this artificial light exposure. So I just wanted to show this randomized and placebo-controlled clinical trial. This was using bilberry, and it actually lowered the incidences of artificial light-induced eye fatigue, the sensations of eye pain, that feeling of eye heaviness, and that uncomfortable feeling of eye strain, where we're all like blinking and ready to go home when our computer screens are just hurting so much. And this really shows the strong impact of these polyphenols on the ability to prevent this artificial light-induced eye fatigue. Another great ingredient in this product is zinc. And zinc is actually a very important element for eye health. But we actually tend to decrease our zinc intake as we age. And this could be a range of issues through gut health issues, the absorption, inadequate dietary intakes. But this is why the elderly are especially more vulnerable to experiencing zinc deficiencies. So zinc actually helps our eye health in a number of ways. Firstly, it actually helps support the body's immune system, and it can decrease the risk of pathogens potentially causing these infections that could happen in our eyes. And this actually lowers the incidence of cell infections of the retina, which is especially vulnerable to a number of pathogenic infections. And this especially occurs in the elderly population. But because zinc is actually, it's an essential trace element, we have to receive it from our diet. And it actually also plays an important role in helping transport vitamin A to the retina, which is so important for our eye health and to prevent that age-related macular degeneration. So when the vitamin A is actually helped transported to the retina by zinc, it actually helps produce melanin. And this protective pigment in the eyes actually helps reduce the effects of this light that is constantly bombarded in our daily lives. So zinc is actually highly concentrated within the eye, and it's mostly in this retina and the vascular tissues that underlie the retina and surround the area. And it's really important in maintaining the health of the retina, because it's actually an important constituent of, like, zinc is actually an important constituent of enzymes, and these are actually needed for optimal metabolism in the eye. So these zinc elements are actually present in these enzymes, which play an important role in scavenging for a lot of those free radicals, which are responsible for a lot of the age-related damaging impacts of eye health. So zinc is an important, it's also important for the structure of eye cells, and it maintains that proper function of the cell. And actually, the research shows that decreased zinc in the cells of the eye increases our eye susceptibility to oxidative damage and impairs their function. So this is why zinc deficiency has actually been linked to impaired vision. And this is, we can have sometimes that poor night vision and that cloudy cataracts. And part of the age-related eye disease study that I mentioned earlier actually showed that zinc supplementation can actually lower the risk of this age-related macular degeneration in the eyes, which is really important. So a significant contribution of that study showed that a 25% reduction could occur in this study taking this supplementation. So some important ways to summarize about protecting your eyes is to limit the screen time where possible. So whenever you can avoid that screen time, take regular breaks. It's especially recommended to take approximately a break every 2 hours and to get regular outdoor activity. Because studies have actually shown that there's an association between constant indoor, like staying indoors for long periods of time, and then an association with a detrimental short-sightedness outcome. So getting regular outdoor activity and allowing those eyes to really relax in the environmental, in the natural environment is a good way to protect your eyesight. It's also very important to wear protective UV sunglasses, and to always have make sure that they're certified to be UV protective, because although our eyes naturally can have some UV protection, it is good to reduce any type of potentially harmful UV rays that are coming into our eyes and potentially causing that age-related degeneration of our eyesight. It's also important to maintain adequate nutrition, because this research shows that this adequate nutrition and this intake of this high polyphenolic foods and other important compounds such as zinc that I mentioned, they can actually lower the incidences of this free radical damage that is occurring from our eyesight. And another great way is to improve the nutritional intake and prevent the possible risk of eye-related degeneration is to really choose an adequate support product that helps maintain and keep those levels of important nutritional content at adequate levels. So really choose Unicity as the leaders in metabolic health, so that the products here are developed to activate your optimal health and well-being and actually protect your long-term vision. Because this vision is actually a great marker, as I showed from these studies, that is very important to us all and something we consider more important than losing a limb or losing our hearing or even losing our memory. So it is a great, important part of making life better. So thank you for listening to this talk about protecting your eyesight, and I hope you maintain and take some of this advice on board for really having that longevity and that important vision reduction, prevention of vision impairment. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Grant. Very, very solid presentation of very important things that we need to consider as we surround ourselves with screens all day, as we're locked inside, just as you mentioned. We'll take 5 to 10 minutes, if you're happy to answer any questions. Before we do that, there are some things that struck me as important to remember, and these were that first, we're swimming in blue light all day. I went during your presentation just to my phone to see my screen time, and it says my daily average is 2 hours and 6 minutes, right? Which is maybe low, but that's only on my phone. First thing, I have 2 phones, so that's one thing. And second thing, all of my work is done on my computer, so I'm surrounded by blue light all day. Another thing that struck me was the macula degeneration is one of the biggest threats to eyesight in developed countries. With blue light, that's something to think about.
It's almost half of the cases that represent eye degeneration now.
Yeah, wow. So strong case for preventing your eyesight degeneration with reduction in blue light. If you're interested to see your screen time out there for everybody listening, I would encourage you to go do that and just see how much blue light are you actually exposing yourself to. So if you're happy to do it, Dr. Grant, I'll go ahead and read some of the questions for you, and then you can respond to them. Is that okay?
Okay, yeah, sure.
Okay. So first here we have from Lee, how and what nutrition can prevent cataract, retina detachment, and glaucoma?
So there is evidence that for some of this is for the serious eye diseases, it can have a genetic link, but genetics alone don't play a role, completely explain all the issues that we can have with our eye health. So it is a good idea that to take adequate nutrition to really keep those levels of those important nutrients that help with eye health to really support and potentially lower the risk of developing those issues later in life.
Thank you. As someone with existing severe floaters condition, and I'll just assume you know what that means. If you don't, we can move on to the next question. Is it necessary to increase the dosage while consuming vision essentials?
Is that yeah? I'm not really sure about the issue that is happening here, but I would recommend if you have a serious eye issue to talk to your healthcare professional and discuss the options for you in relieving and preventing a lot of these eye conditions.
Great. Are the zinc, vitamin A, etc. in vision essentials an adequate recommended daily dosage?
Yes, so the ingredients and the formulation and the vision essentials is actually at the above the recommended daily intake. And part of that study that I talked about with that age-related incidences of eye degeneration that was conducted by the National Eye Institute in America actually showed that having intake above the recommended daily amounts actually lowered the incidences of this degenerative eye health by up to 25%. So it is, this formulation is actually above RDIs.
Okay, great. Next question is it effective to use yellow light mode on your mobile device versus blue light mode permanently, or should we just use that at night?
So when I talked about the blue light, there was a few issues with blue light. So blue light is actually very naturally, it's healthy for you. But in the past, we were only exposed to it from the sun was the source of blue light, and actually helps with mood, as I mentioned, responses, the feeling of cognition it helps with. But it's this artificial light that can actually interfere with our sleep patterns. So our circadian rhythms are actually affected by this blue light. So this is why a lot of the phones have that feature to reduce the blue light at nighttime, so that it doesn't affect your sleep as much. And it's because that blue light of the natural visible light that we can see actually penetrates further into the eye, why it has such an effect on our health.
Okay, thank you. This is a good question. In a given day, we also consume other Unicity products. Will I be at risk of taking excessive vitamins into my body if I'm worried about getting each and every one of the products?
So a lot of these vitamins are actually water soluble, which means that any excess that the body doesn't utilize, they'll actually be removed from the body very quickly. They're not stored, if that makes sense. So there isn't a risk of intake of taking over the recommended amount.
Okay, great. And maybe one last question. Does Vision Essentials help with astigmatism, short or long-sightedness? Any of those?
So when I mentioned that a lot of the problem with this blue light exposure and this staying inside is the possibility that it increases the risk of short-sighted development. So if you decrease this blue light and the symptoms of blue light exposure, you could actually reduce the risks of developing short-sightedness later in life.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you so much. If there's nothing else to add from you, Dr. Grant, then what we want to do is just say thank you so much for your time today. You've been a great help in adding to our knowledge stores, especially in terms of our vision today. And for those of you in Singapore, Myanmar, Brunei, or Australia, we've thought a lot about this idea of blue light and protecting our eyesight and making sure that the detriment is limited and mitigated to our eyesight over time, especially during these times of COVID-19. So you can look forward, if you're in Singapore, Myanmar, Brunei, or Australia in the near future, to a special promotion to get a pair of Unicity blue light glasses with orders of Vision Essentials. And with that, we'll keep you as up to date on that as possible. Other than that, thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Dr. Grant. It's been very helpful today.
Thank you for having me, Mike. It's been great.
You're welcome.
And that survey was actually really interesting with the way they rated the effect of losing their eyesight or that vision impairment I found really surprising.
Yeah. More than losing a limb, that's surprising. I guess your eyes are the window to the soul, so that's probably why, right?
Yeah, that's so true.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Grant. We appreciate your time, and we hope to see you again soon.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'll talk to you soon.
Have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.